I decided to transition Toyota into a mobility company, going beyond a car company. It's a company that helps people move. E-Palette unveiling in January 2018. Mass areas collaboration expanded, promoting connected technology throughout Southeast Asia. Strategic alliance with SoftBank, aiming at building new mobility with SoftBank together. Money Technologies is establishment of a new company, Kinto. The agreement to reach is a joint venture company on city building business. Combining know-how of both companies will create new value added in the lives of a city as a whole. Efforts in the automated efforts. Establish a TRA-AD in Tokyo. Toyota TRA Aishin Denso members participate in that. In CES in the United States, unveil new type of automated driving vehicle. The Guardian system with high safety driving assistance and chauffeur mode both are accelerated in development and aiming at early penetration and
today,
spread.
For the first time, we're announcing that we're going to offer it
The
as
Guardian
well
for
to
All
the industry.
is going to
And
be
that
provided
is
to
what Guardian
many
for
people.
All
That's what we're
is
aiming
all
at.
about.
Expanded collaboration with Uber on automated driving technology.
In April 2019, investment in Uber ATG with Denso SoftBank Vision Fund accelerate development and deployment in autonomous driving and rideshare service initiatives for electrification. In December 2017, start consideration and collaboration with the Panasonic in prismatic battery business for vehicle. In January 2019, agreed to establish joint venture company for battery business. In March 2019, announced into the space exploration mission with JAXA. And the stated FCB lunar vehicle started the lunar vehicle project. 2017 started demonstration tests of FC commercial trucks in LA, 40 areas of the US. April 2019 disclosed a new FC heavy-duty commercial truck in April 2019. At Shanghai MS, Toyota brand EV was released in April, announced to the grant the patent license for electrification technology royalty-free. Not offering just complete vehicles, Toyota would like to contribute to Popularize BEVs globally as a supplier of EV technology. In March 2019, financial results business we can serve for global environment, including unless environment-friendly technology become popular. Patients should not be enclosed, and patents should not be enclosed. It should be made open to increase partners, not just vehicles, but the package of system, including usage, should be widely made open, which needs a change of thinking in order to pursue contribution to a better society, which will lead to a new business models. Case initiatives, we will continue to increase partners in this way.
Thank you very much for joining us today despite your occupied schedules. I really appreciate your presence. We would like to start the press briefing on Electrified Vehicles Popularization Challenge. First of all, about the schedule for today's press briefing. First of all, EVP Terashi will make 30-minute or so presentation, and that is going to be followed by Q&A session, which is expected to last for maybe 45 minutes. We have some exhibits and display in the hall, so please take time to look at them. So without further ado, I would like to invite EVP Terashi to make a presentation. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Terashi. Thank you very much for joining us despite your occupied schedules. I really appreciate your participation. And I would like to also thank you for your understanding and support for various activities that we are engaged in. In the early part of 2018, at the Consumer Electronics Show held in Las Vegas, the United States, Toyota, our president, declared, and I quote, "I'll transition Toyota into a mobility company going beyond a car company." Earlier, In 18 months, we are engaged in various activities relating to case since the declaration. And earlier, we showed you a video that featured some typical examples. Together with many partners, we want to be a company that contributes to the society by helping many people in the society. And I hope you understood our intentions in that. Going forward, considering the Mars and sharing business going forward, the center at that would be without doubt BEVs. And today, I don't have enough time to describe all the projects that we are engaged in and that are being advanced today. However, as much as possible, we would like to explain the challenges that we have embraced for popularization of BEVs. So first, including BEVs, let me make a brief review of what we have been doing thus far, the initiatives. Motors, batteries, power control units. These three are called core technologies for electrification. And by adding specific units to them, we get a variety of electrified vehicles such as FCEV, BEV, PHEV, and HEVs. By further adding automated driving technology and connectivity technology, we have next-generation mobility services, including MaaS. By developing core technology, we at Toyota would like to serve our customers and the society in various ways, not just providing fully built-up vehicles, but also offering systems and technologies. A widespread adoption of electrified vehicles is indispensable for reducing CO2 emission. Toyota has set a long-term goal of reducing the amount of CO2 emitted by a new car during driving by 90% in 2050 compared to that in 2010. As a milestone, we announced a target in 2017 to have 4.5 million units or more of HEVs and PHEVs combined and over 1 million units of BEVs and FCEVs, and have aggregate total of electrified vehicles of 5.5 million or more. It's only been a year and a half since the announcement, but progress is going on at the speed surpassing that target. And progressing at the current pace would move up the plan by around maybe 5 years. And in various parts of the world, the expectations are growing for electrified vehicles aiming at reducing CO2 emission. And in order to respond to such heightened expectations, we must further accelerate our preparations. We are out of electrified vehicles on zero-emission vehicles that emits no CO2 during operations. We are engaged in various activities. BEVs include what we call those in the pedestrian zone EVs and also two-seater ultra-compact BEVs and variety of areas. What you see, each palette in the center represents mass vehicles, and this is assumed to be BEV, and the development is entering its climax so that it be ready for 2020 Tokyo and Paralympic Games. We already announced our plan to have more than 10 BEV models available worldwide by early 2020s, starting with the rollout in China, first of all, in 2020, and increasing the models globally. Furthermore, this year in April in the Shanghai Motor Show, we unveiled BEV that we are going to roll out in a full-fledged manner in China. And we are now working on the preparation for BEV rollout as we planned. From here on, I will explain the latest initiatives we are taking for widespread adoption of BEVs going forward. First of all, this slide shows the key points of those initiatives. By maintaining cooperative stance, we'll invite extensively and openly partners to build new business models. Concretely, first of all, we'll initiate our efforts to establish a business model utilizing an ultra-compact BEVs in Japan. Secondly, for regions where markets are being formed, such as China, the United States, and Europe, we'll efficiently develop various types of BEVs. And thirdly, with respect to batteries, a key to enhanced product strength, we'll focus only on high-performance batteries that do not easily degrade. Furthermore, to respond to rapid increase in electrified vehicles, we'll build battery supply framework in collaboration with battery manufacturers worldwide. And on those, I would like to explain and elaborate one by one. First of all, establishment of a new business model for widespread adoption is what I would like to explain first. And this briefly summarizes the global BEV markets today. In 2018, about 1.2 million units of BEVs were sold in the world. Those are pure EVs. More than half of that were in China, followed by the United States and European countries, and also Japan. In each region, the market is formed under the BEV incentives of promotion policies, including regulations, among others, by the government. We believe we must have ready the popularized BEVs that customers will choose, even without promotion policies. How are we going to make BEVs more widely adopted? This shows the approach that we have in mind at this moment. We will not be constrained by conventional business model in which we just develop and manufacture BEVs, wholesale to dealers, and deliver them to customers. Rather, we start by thinking how we should be doing to serve the society better and search for partners in an extensive and open manner, and together we'll create a new business model. This shows the overview of the business model that we have in mind. We'll improve product features with durable and high-performing batteries and make a maximum use of BEVs and batteries from manufacturing all the way through to the disposal to address challenges of popularization. More concretely, we'll expand leasing in addition to sales, ensure thorough collection of those batteries, and assess and evaluate the status of batteries after customer use. And on that basis, by doing so, some will be distributed as used cars. We use batteries as service parts or for non-vehicle use, and in this manner make a full use of batteries. Furthermore, we'll prepare ancillary services such as recharging service and insurance services most suited to BEVs. We are thinking of creating such a business model with partners joining us from various sectors and fields, which we believe is very important. Through direct communication with users of vehicles, we'd like to develop products truly meeting customer needs.
So with this idea, we will start here in Japan. So these are the various customer opinions related to the BEV business when we think of our business model. For example, young people who just got the driver's license, old people who need daily mobility, or corporate use for rounds and visits, and local governments who want to secure safe and free mobility suitable for local conditions in both urban and mountainous areas. We receive diverse requests from different customers. We believe that there are new business opportunities for BEVs, including compact vehicles and short-distance vehicles. To respond to such voices, these are the BEVs under development at present. First, ultra-compact BEVs, smaller than the mini vehicles. At Tokyo Motor Show in 2017, we announced concept model to your left. It's called concept model I-Ride. As shown in the middle, we are developing the commercial BEVs of this class. On the right, you can see we are considering business concept model as well. So this ultra-compact BEV is planned to be launched next year for young, newly licensed drivers as well as the elderly. This vehicle is easy to move around to support their daily mobility. For businesses, we expect it to be used as an environmentally friendly business vehicles for their daily the short distance rounds and customer visits. Target is occupancy of 2 people, smaller than a mini vehicle, and cruising range on a single charge is approximately 100 kilometers. Next, this is the tricycle EV called I-Road. This is much smaller than the ultra-compact BEV. It's almost the size of a motorcycle. For some time, in urban and tourist spots, we've been conducting verification tests at public roads, assuming sharing services. We are also developing walking area or pedestrian area BEVs. Left picture shows I-Walk concept model exhibited at 2017 Tokyo Motor Show. After the motor show, in this area around MegaWeb, I-Walk has been actually used by customers as transportation means during events, and the verification tests were conducted for rounds and security patrols at Chubu International Airport and Narita Airport. We are preparing to possibly launch it in 2020. Walking area BEVs have other variations under consideration as well. Left image shows the seated type in one, and main uses are mobility when holding lots of luggages or when walking is difficult, or for the people with gait impairment. The right image is a wheelchair linked type. It can be attached to a manual wheelchair as a power source. So we are preparing for the BEVs business model, which cover development, sales, to the disposal. And for each area, we are recruiting partners who work together and discuss the specifics together. And the customer firms and local governments, and we are directly discussing the needed function and performance of the potential products. The details cannot be disclosed today, but with the future partners and customers, we are discussing the details now, and the almost 40 organizations and companies are now discussing this with us. Under this business model, we have the lineup of BEVs for the people, for example, who can drive the normal cars, as well as the old people who return driver's license already, or the wheelchair users, suiting to each person's life stage need. We offer safe and secure mobility. So this video clip shows the image of life scenes. So in addition to enhanced mobility, we pay close attention to the needs of the local community and customers. We offer face-to-face heartfelt assistance to support lives. Next, I would like to talk about the development of BEVs for global deployment.
For markets with high BEV demand, such as China, the United States, and Europe, we are conducting development for popularization of BEVs. To encourage various customers with different needs to choose BEVs, we need to prepare enough variations, and we are conducting efficient development to offer vehicles at reasonable prices. More concretely, we are jointly planning and developing multiple models together with partners, companies with specific areas of strength and specialty. By sorting out customer needs, we come up with 6 variations of different sizes and styles. We plan and develop medium SUVs with Subaru and compact models with Suzuki and Daihatsu. This shows our approach to BEV dedicated platform. Within Toyota, together with the Subaru, we are now engaged in planning and development. And within Toyota, we call it E, T, and G because we consider it to be one of the Toyota new global architecture. Motor units in front and rear, layouts within a hood, driver's positions relative to the front wheels, and battery widths are fixed. And the wheelbases, number of batteries installed, and overhangs, etc., are varied and altered. So in this way, by having fixed points and variable points, enables multiple vehicle variations. And dedicated BEVs, units such as motors, PCUs, and are jointly planned with Subaru. And combining several kinds of motors enables necessary variations to flexibly offer necessary driveline and types and driving performance. This can be summarized as well by combining several kinds of modules, such as front modules, center and rear models and units will deploy diverse variations of vehicles efficiently. And using this approach, we can create wide-ranging variations as shown. Today, we have on the exhibit clay models used in design study processes. Normally, a clay model for internal study is not made public, but we'd like you to know concretely the progress we've made in development. So especially we put them in display. The BEV planning and development I explained today are conducted by Toyota ZEV Factory, a specialized organization to conduct zero-emission vehicle product development and business planning. We, in collaboration with many partners, each sending partners, dedicated engineers, we are developing basic technologies by establishing EVCA spirit. And in this ZEV Factory, it is engaged in development of BEV development, and it will engage in FCEV development as well. It also covers ultra-compact mobility as well as vehicles for global introduction. Toyota ZEV Factory is cooperating with many corporations and organizations, with the contributions made by many organizations and partner organizations, such as those mentioned earlier, that conduct joint planning and development, companies that supply units and parts. Together, we are conducting development work. As for BEVs to be deployed internationally, I only explained approach globally, framework for development today. But for them as well, we'll use a business model. Next, let me talk about battery. And the battery is a core technology common to all the electrified vehicles. As you know, it is a decisive key to performance, and the technologies Toyota cultivated in the process of selling 13 million units of HEVs cumulatively, of course, will be applied to BEVs.
あたりの電池の容量と燃費をプロットしたものであります。 ここにトヨタの電動化システムの効率の良さを見ることができるのではないかと思います。一般的には電池の容量が大きい方がたくさんエネルギー
Generally speaking, the higher the battery capacity, the heavier the weight, and it requires a larger space and a higher price. However, that has been the curtailing factor. And then because it required larger space and higher price. So this graph shows that the Toyota hybrid system has a smaller battery capacity compared with the other systems, but it has a better fuel economy, and it has because it has a better system and efficiency. This indicates electric power is put in and out of the battery, and power control unit and motor efficiency is excellent. This technology enables us to build an efficient BEVs, and this technology is applied for PHEV. This actually compares the previous PHEV with that of the competitors, BEV cruising range per battery capacity. And we realized longer BEV cruising range than the competitors. That has been realized in this. The cultivated technology through the development of hybrid vehicle is used to enhance the EV driving performance of PHEV. In other words, applied to BEV as well. Next, the battery durability, which has a major impact upon this BEV performance. The remaining capacity after long-term use. The first generation Prius PHEV released in 2012 and the second generation released in 2017 both achieved top-level battery durability at that time. It is a result of the accumulated technology to control degradation, including battery materials, the pack structure, and the steering system. We aim for higher durability in CHR BEV to be released next year, and we continue on R&D to aim for the world's top-class durability when global model BEV is released in the market. Improving battery durability leads to offering environment-friendly, attractive BEVs. As I mentioned, in new BEV business models, we are trying to promote used vehicle sales and reuse of batteries. To increase battery durability will become more and more important. Now I'd like to talk about the battery supply. BEVs are growing much faster than the original expectation compared to PHEVs or the PHVs. And EVs need higher capacity batteries, so we must prepare more batteries quicker. So we think we must establish a new system for development and supply. So far, we had the Prime Earth EV Energy, which was established as a partner. But in addition, Panasonic and we are preparing to set up a new company together. As the BEVs rapidly increase, we have to quickly respond to the diverse needs of the regions and local community. To do so, we will collaborate with global battery manufacturers who share Toyota's vision for development, namely CATL, BYD, GS Yuasa Corporation, Toshiba, Toyota Industries. So we will collaborate with them further, and through that we will set up a framework for battery procurement to realize the popularization of BEVs. So far, I explained the Toyota's future initiatives to popularize BEVs. To conclude, I'd like to deliver the following message in summary. To prepare EVs which are popular and chosen by customers, many things need to be done, such as the vehicle development, stable battery supply, and improved durability, and then reuse as well. There are lots of things to do. Toyota is steadily preparing a framework to do that, to realize that. And we are searching for partners in a more extensive and open manner in the hope of contributing to a better society. We hope many people will share our inspiration to accelerate our initiative. And today, I have introduced you the names of the many partners and organizations, but we are discussing this topic with the many other potential partners. In the future, when the specific ideas become available, we would like to take opportunity to introduce them to you. Toyota will transition from an automotive company to a mobility company. We want to be a company to offer mobility for all. We want to have a vision or viewpoint of home planet. We wish to contribute to solve environment challenges on global scale by promoting BEVs, in other words, CO2 emission reduction and reduction of air pollution. Thank you very much for your attention.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, we would like to move on to the Q&A session. First, let me introduce to you the participants from our side for this Q&A session. Once again, the EVP, the member of the board, and the president of Advanced Technology Development, Shigeki Terashi, and then Keiji Kaita, the field general manager of battery business field, and Koji Toyoshima, general manager of Toyota ZEV factory. When you want to ask questions, please raise your hand so that the microphone can be brought to you. And I would like to ask for your cooperation in the following. That is, we would like to have as many people as possible ask questions, and therefore I would like to request each one of you to limit questions to 2. And with respect to the concrete collaboration with various partner companies, which was mentioned in Terashi's presentation, details are now being discussed, and therefore there are cases where we will not be able to give you specific and concrete answers. So please keep that in mind and show your understanding. So, person seated in the second row from the front, please. Junichi newspaper Osada is my name. Thank you for this opportunity. You are now specializing, holding this press briefing, specializing in BEVs, and I think this is the first time that you hold this sort of event. On the previous occasion, Mr. Terashi explained about your projects in electrified vehicles. That was back in 2017. And what is the reason you are focusing and specializing this press briefing on BEVs? So that's the first question. And secondly, previously, sometime in the past, as Mr. Terashi mentioned, amongst various electrified vehicles, the battery holds the key point that was mentioned by Mr. Terashi some time ago. And for the first time outside of Japan, especially those in China, you announced a collaboration with the Chinese manufacturers. What is the differentiation you're going to make in terms of collaboration between Chinese partners and Japanese or other partners in the battery area? Thank you for your question. About your first question, that is to say, why are we holding this press briefing specializing in BEVs? Since 2014 or 17, we have been talking about electrified vehicles, or sometimes we talked about FCEVs. And some time ago, out of electrified vehicles, we focused on hybrid electric vehicles, focusing on patents on that, patents on hybrid technology. And in those occasions, we received many questions on battery EVs, and we have not been able to provide adequate information on BEVs in the past. And by holding this press briefing on BEVs, probably we'll be able to explain major initiatives we are engaged in the area of electrified vehicles overall. That was our thinking, and as shown at the very beginning of this, as Toyota mentioned, moving toward the case, we want to build a new business model. And in that, the role to be played by individual technologies as we move toward that, by focusing on BEV, we can clarify different roles. So by focusing on BEV this time, probably we thought we can give you a better and more clear understanding. The BEVs, FCEVs, and PHEVs, probably you can understand the role to be played by individual type of electric vehicles. So that's the reason for this. Second question relating to battery. We consider ourselves to be a battery manufacturer. From many years ago, the battery used for the Prius, especially we started with nickel ion technology, and we moved into lithium-ion technology as well. We initiated the development of all-solid-state battery as well. However, as I mentioned earlier, the volume and amount of batteries required for electrified vehicles, and of course, different regions need to be considered independently for the business we conduct in specific areas. And considering that, probably we will not be able to satisfy all the requirements of batteries for our business. We have been working with Panasonic or PEVE. Those are the battery areas we consider to be our home, and therefore we have own capabilities in batteries. But at the same time, the technology that we have, proprietary technology that we have, and technology that could be procured may have some gap. And therefore, together with battery manufacturers that we are collaborating with or potential partners, as we move toward the future, by making this open approach would facilitate our collaboration. And that's why we explained our collaboration with different manufacturers. But if you have more concrete questions, please address that to Mr. Kaita, who is in charge of battery. I'd like to invite Mr. Kaita to answer that. Basically speaking, the basic stance was already explained by Terashi. With Panasonic, we are thinking of establishing a new company, and in addition to Panasonic, the PEVE. So these two are considered to be the focus of a battery collaboration, and they will be our focus and home companies. But considering cooperation and going forward, very rapid development of electrified vehicles, both in terms of quality and quantity, is considered. So is it appropriate to have only home base for the supply of batteries? When we consider that, for the further development in the future and considering different conditions in each market or each regions, the local manufacturers whose names have been mentioned in the presentation are now being negotiating with. And different manufacturers are based on different markets, and they have developed themselves with different histories, and they have outstanding expertise, each different from others. So leveraging that, we would like to apply their technology to come up with a better vehicle. I'll keep that in mind in your development efforts. Person in the center of the room, in the front row, please. Nikkei Automotive, Ogawa is my name. With respect to the BEV business, commercialization, and also the competitors, in terms of commercialization of BEVs, in the early part of 2010, there was a boom of BEVs, and Toyota announced that it will introduce full-fledged BEVs, but because of the high cost of battery, you withdrew. And today, again, you showed very positive approach to BEVs, but at the same time, unless it is quite clear that there is the strong business viability for BEVs, unless that is the case, the materials manufacturers or battery manufacturers tend to be backward-looking. So in the case of Toyota's BEVs, and equals this means a battery as a business, are you sure that you can make positive profit, including vehicles overall, even including engine vehicles? Whatever lacking, probably you'll be trying to coming up with a BEV so that you can satisfy regulations, or are you sure that you can make profitable business with BEVs right away? Thank you for very good questions. With respect to business viability, earlier you talked about 2010, and in the past there has been several booms of BEVs. What's different this time compared with the past was that is related to case, including AI, connectivity. And all of a sudden, right now, the new business seems to become more visible. Not just having BEVs, but it seems that we have entered a new age. And that, I think, is going to push us toward focusing more on BEVs. More specifically about batteries, compared with 2010, the energy density is high, and also the price per unit has come down. So compared with the 2010s, in terms of the business viability, I think we have come in a positive way and in a favorable situation. But still, compared with the conventional gasoline engine vehicles, this will be quite tough to achieve a profitable business with BEVs. If you're interested in just building cars, buying materials, developing technology, and using those materials to come up with building cars and selling those to the customers, using only such a simple business model will not assure the viable business, including mass or sharing mentioned earlier. The fact that those new business opportunities have expanded enhanced the viability of BEV business. And once those become viable, the BEV business will become viable, even if the battery price may be quite high, but probably as the overall business, the BEV could be more viable. As shown in the video earlier, that's the pace at which we are recruiting partners and creating business models. But even with that, we are not quite sure that this business can continue to be viable. As our president Toyoda says, that it is the matter of death or survival. Unless we work on this at a very accelerated manner, we will not be able to ensure our future survivability. So that's why we are focused so much on BEVs and the building of business model now.
A person on the second row from the front. Watanabe of Lightline. I have two parts of questions. First question is just to clarification. CATL, and you have a joint venture now, and then in order to have a framework for supply. But is this the battery to be mounted for the domestic production in China? Another question is related to CAFE regulation. For LCA, the unit-wise, maybe you have to think of the CO2 emission during the manufacturing process. As the BEV increases in terms of CO2, it's a negative impact upon CO2 overall emission level. So in that sense, THS, of course, Toyota has a good, high efficient one. So when you think of global CO2 emission, maybe hybrid vehicles should be sold more actively. That will eventually reduce the overall CO2 emission. And you make more contribution to environment in that sense. So as an automobile company, what do you think of that overall impact upon the CO2 emission? What's your philosophy on overall CO2 emission? Do you have any statement on that CO2 emission? Maybe you should strongly advocate that message, which might be better for Toyota. That's my personal view. What do you think of your idea on this? Thank you for your question. The first question is about the CATL and our collaboration. It's not a joint venture yet. We have not formed a joint venture. But the battery supply will come from CATL to us. So maybe Mr. Kaita will give you details on that supply. CATL and we, of course, that's China. And they are excellent company with technology. So we are discussing with them. That's a fact. The first one, battery from them, the CATA, rather than for China market, but they are trying to use it for the BEVs, because China has the highest demand for the electric vehicle. So that we are thinking about introducing that there. But as the PowerPoint showed, that each company might be utilized as a partner in which region of the world, depending upon the vehicle performance or each regional conditions. We have a flexible consideration to have an allocation of workload amongst all the partners concerned. That's something to happen. As to the response to LCA, well, as a company, what is a company philosophy or statement? It's a very difficult issue. What should be the mission message? Europe has a CO2 regulation, a BEV. Like well-to tank-wise, that the electric vehicle is not so good, but Japan now has a CO2 emission which considered overall CO2 emission when you evaluate this electrified vehicle. So what is overall CO2 impact upon the environment? And globally, there's no unified standard way to assess the CO2 emission. Energy policy also needs to be taken into account, and in that grand frame, that the automobile's function and role should be discussed. So in that sense, only the tank to wheel is the only area that we are managing. But what about the other places? What about the CO2 emission in the factory plants and other places toward the 2050? What should be the overall global energy the policy? How should we reduce CO2 emission on Earth? We need to have a grand vision and consideration rather than just talking about the automobile industry. Then what will be the way the automobile should be? We have to discuss that in a staged manner. So by then, CO2 reducing technology could include hybrid or PHV or BEV and then FCV. Depending upon the region, they have a different supply of energy, and converting some to hydrogen. Some people might convert the original energy into the electricity. So depending upon the local the condition of supply of energy, the calculation might be different. So when there's a certain area has no infrastructure, you have to have other options. So for each region, they might have the optimal answer, so that toward 2050, the Paris Agreement is not the regulation per unit, but it's a total regulation. So if you increase overall business volume, then per unit CO2 reduction demand might be imposed upon this Paris Agreement. So there's a way of thinking per vehicle, or as we entire business grows, and then if you would like to sell more vehicles in total, then you have to have a certain policy for the overall CO2 emission. So that's maybe something, the grand scheme that the company should consider. Of course, the regulation is as a premise for us, our discussion. What you said, and the most important point is exactly that. So we would like to continue to convey this message at many opportunities like this forum. Person in the second row in the middle. Thank you. Shikano of NHK, thank you for this opportunity. I have a question. You covered something, so my question might be redundant. But again, to clarify, you now are holding today's meeting, which is the purpose of today's meeting is very important, including Mars. Maybe BEV is now the focus today. But as a mobility company, which you declared to become a mobility company, so BEV, what is the strength of BEV? What is the strong point of BEV? And in the battery and development in many areas, you are trying to recruit more partners. The partners is keyword, but to recruit and have partners, what's your aspiration in having more partners in order to popularize BEVs? Because partners are required. So could you please give us more details about the partner recruitment? Well, again, we took this time to focus on BEV in a presentation. So in the conventional BEVs, globally, the people are trying to sell more, but maybe cruising distance or limitation, battery is too expensive, charging time is too long. So compared to the conventional gasoline vehicle and so on, there was a negative points. BEVs has all kinds of negative points, demerits. In order to recover that, and then maybe you can solve the bottleneck for BEVs. But the strong points, benefits, merits should be counted more positively for BEVs. In that sense, the cruising range might not be required for some use, but the charging time might not be so much a bottleneck. And then another point, in BEVs, in case of gasoline that requires transmission, so to respond to this emission control, for that the complete compliance is much simpler. It's connected and automated. The driving as well as the mass can be used for BEVs. So that the structure of the BEV is simple. Electrified vehicle is so simple, which means another difficulty, which I could talk about that at the next opportunity. Structure-wise, BEVs have the simplest structure. As a mass part, I think it is most usable. So in that sense, we want to become a mobility company. Mass and sharing and new business models will be constructed in the future. Then the core will be BEV. I think that's our aspiration. So far, we haven't really conveyed this message on BEV, and that is why we have this session today. Toyota is now aspiring to become the future kind of a company, and then you could have a total picture of Toyota as a future in this way, having more partners with us, and we are emphasizing it. Popularization of the vehicle is crucial, as Mr. Toyota mentioned during this financial results announcement. When vehicles become popular, then we can make contribution to the society. So you have to have as many partners as possible. In the past, we were not so good at making partners, working together with them. How can we increase this overall population of these partners? Maybe the Toyojima can comment on this as executive in charge of this. Thank you. I'm Toyoshima. As Mr. Terashi mentioned, suddenly he nominated me. I wasn't expecting. I was a bit complacent there. But anyway, including battery development and other development, we like to have more partners. Why? Because BEV, as you has been mentioned, as a business, it's difficult to have a viable business and make profit. In that sense, for example, battery, if you use it to the vehicle, it's 75% residual battery. But together with the vehicle, that the battery used to be discarded, that's mottainai, so wasteful, according to the Japanese mentality, with the residual value being abundant, so that the battery should be utilized fully together with the other partners. We have to really expand the scope of the partners. Building the vehicle, maybe structure could be redesigned, taking that in mind, so that some of the people who can share the same ideas can get together. Then the BEV's strength in the local market will be stronger. So I think one of the symbols is that the ultra tiny or the compact mobility vehicles, in terms of battery, that could be used as it's similar to the household battery capacity. With that tiny battery capacity, that tiny vehicle can run. That battery can be just reused for other purposes, or brand new battery used for that could be applied to different businesses. Maybe the battery application businesses could also expand in unexpected ways. That is aspiration. That is a basis for us to try to recruit as many partners as possible to work together. As you raised the issue about the in 2010, EV was already talked about. At that time, I was the director in charge of EV development office. I was already involved in that BEV development. But ever since, now PHEV became an important emphasis. PHEV was given. So I was then in charge of Prius PHEV at that time. So in order to create this kind of society, you have we didn't really, I didn't recognize the need for this in 2020 or so. But later I was assigned to this new position in order to popularize. These are certain points of importance, and then that is another underlying factors for recruiting more partners.
Let us invite the next question, please. On the furthest right, in the front row, please. Omoto of Nikkei Journal. I have two questions. First of all, for the time being, the volume of BEVs, what is the yardstick or target you have at this moment? Is that around 1 million unit? That's my understanding. Am I right in understanding that to be around 1 million units? And if that is the case, assuming that today you don't have any concrete BEVs, but you will reach 1 billion units by around 2025. How do you intend to achieve that? The China is likely to be the largest market, but by different geographies, what would be the breakdown of the popularization you are aiming at globally? If you have some blueprint that you could share with it, that please talk about that. That's the first question. And secondly, Mr. Terashi talked about the regulations, and of course, the regulations would have a lot to do with the introduction of BEVs, including regulations, regulatory aspects. You have talked about the introduction of BEVs several times, and once again, you are now introducing this EV concept. Would the regulations change your plan for allocation of different regions, or not? Especially keeping that in mind, the European regulations, could you talk about that? So those are the two questions. The target or yardstick of volume, Nikkei reported that 1.1 million units of BEVs by 2025, and probably you are seeking the information to corroborate that, I guess. If you add those regulations, we will not reach 1 million units. It will be fewer than 1 million units. However, as I mentioned earlier, whether the vehicles that customers really want to drive can be offered or not, then that's the decisive point for the popularization of BEVs. So just in terms of a selling volume of BEVs, the volume brought about by regulations and the volume that customers really want to buy, probably the market will not go ahead of the regulations. And therefore, probably the volume just to satisfy regulations will be rolled out in the market. But with that, with only that, it will be very difficult for us to satisfy CAFE regulations, and therefore, are we going to sell more BEVs simply for the purpose of satisfying CAFE regulations? Of course, the approach would vary from company to company, but some will focus much on the sale of BEVs just for the sake of a CAFE satisfaction. That's, of course, up to individual companies. But in terms of the yardstick, on the business-as-usual basis, we are not likely to reach 1 million units by 2025. That's how I look at the situation. And if that is the case, probably the volume of hybrid vehicles will be bigger than what we have in mind. Secondly, you asked about whether the allocation will be changed depending upon the regulations. As I mentioned earlier, we'll have ready all sorts of vehicles that can satisfy various regulations as those regulations change. But the final decision will be up to the customers and whether customers are willing to buy or not. So unless more and more customers wish to buy BEVs in the future, probably the allocation ratio will not change that much from what we see today. You may have more questions, but since the time has scheduled to end has come, I would like to ask the next question to be the final one.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. Shimizu, freelance writer. Toyota mentioned that with a smaller capacity battery, the very efficient powertrain can be achieved, so that the plug-in for the THF base, rather than influenced by the EU regulation, maybe EV cruising distance is 50 kilometers. Then maybe mild plug-in can be as a possible technology in the limited application, or EBV is a simple vehicle to be constructed, but in reality, BEV, the good car, is difficult to be built. What are the difficulties in building a good BEVs in terms of commodity? Not a tiny one, but maybe C-Seg or higher level of the vehicles. When you demand a higher level of the drivability and the performance in in a competitive area, how can you differentiate your products of the BEV different from the competitors, and what are the difficulty of building such a competitive new BEVs? You pinpointed a difficult question. The first question, the mild plug-in philosophy as a potential. The basis is that the two-motor strong hybrid THS that Toyota has, and then competitors has this mild hybrid one-motor type vehicles of different design. Compared to that, we used to have that mild hybrid applied to Crown, but we suffered. It was difficult because environment and efficiency, fuel economy efficiency-wise, the cost versus actual performance you achieve, the mild is not so good. Maybe stronger two-motor type is clearly better in terms of performance. Well, in terms the battery with less plugins, if you use it as a basis when you shift to plug-in type with a minimum of the battery capacity, and then you let the longer cruising range, then you combine with a mild plug-in. We wouldn't combine that with a mild one. But in case of THS plug-in, R110 or something, and then maybe 10 kilowatt hour is not chosen, but a smaller capacity battery. That's why I use the word mild in a different way. Oh, I see. Mild PHV you are talking about. We are creating BEV now, and then as Mr. Shimizu mentioned, that it has a difficulty. Those difficult challenges should be touched upon. And then what to do about PHV? Well, BEV, as you mentioned, that it's now going to become a commodity that anyone can build. But what is our inherent strength, like a C-Seg or higher model? How can we have a good competitive BEV in that category? Well, to achieve that, there's a conventional engine, there's a platform, but maybe BEV, the dedicated platform, could be created. And what will happen? And then BEV strength might be achieved. So that's something we are testing and studying. And then we are proposing this new ETNGA. So that it still has a difficulty because battery. How can a more efficient one? It can be put to the top tip module. How can we install that? And then the battery safety still has to be secured in that position. And then, as we mentioned, efficient operation should be enabled. So in a more compact way, the platform should be redesigned. By that, the conventional car, the wheelbase could be maybe expanded. So even a smaller size car, but one size larger, the capacity can be achieved, and that kind of the closed environment can be used for business purposes. Then the vehicle production and then business can be linked as a package, but that is the most difficult challenge you have to solve. And then that platform and the system can be first built, and then battery is there. How can we size down the size of the battery? And then lens extender type. The power generator can be installed in addition. And then you feel comfortable and safe to drive a long distance. That as a PHEV, could we call it as a mild? Maybe that's one option, the future alternative, if you call it as a mild type. So with that, we concluded all the scheduled the session on this time. And then again, I'd like to thank you all very much for coming despite your very busy schedule.